Hi, my name is Melissa Barker-Simpson, author of the Morgan and Fairchild series. This is my contribution to the Read Around the World experiment, and I'm reading from Yorkshire in the UK. Somewhere in between the knock at the door and the explosion of said door, Nigel had stepped aside and stood pressed firmly up against the wall. Suddenly, the head of a 4-foot-tall old lady stuck her head through the 2-foot-wide hole in the door. She looked around wildly before looking at Nigel, who smiled back politely. "Did you see him?" she said. "Did you see him?" Nigel was surprised that such volume could come from such a small head encased in a knitted woolen bonnet. Nigel flashed his badge. "Detective Reinhardt. You're Mrs. Jones, I presume?" "Miss Jones. Miss. Did you see him? He's going to come back for me, you know. He told me he would," said Miss Jones with a hint of alarm. Her eyes scanned the street like a weasel looking for dinner. In his mind, Nigel rolled his eyes. Physically, he continued to fix his gaze on the deranged old woman. "Don't suppose you'd like to hand me the shotgun?" Miss Jones thought about this for a while before answering a resolute "no", then asked if he'd like to come in for a cup of tea, claimed that he seemed to be a nice young man, and then apologised for almost blowing his head off. She unlocked the door and let Nigel in. The people standing lined up outside Mrs. Beattie's house had been busy staring disapprovingly at the hullabaloo. Comments like "no respect for the dead" and "always trying to be the centre of attention" got thrown around. On closer inspection, Nigel found that Miss Jones was actually shorter than 4 feet. She was more like 3.5 feet. The word elf wandered through his head, but didn't feel right in relation to Miss Jones, and so it left. Her small head, encased in the woolen bonnet, sat gingerly upon her shoulders, almost as if independent of the rest of her rather stumpy body. Her body moved, and her head would reluctantly follow, as if resigned to the fact that it had no other choice. Miss Jones followed Nigel to the living room, a place that already had the smell of old lady poured into the very particles of every object in the room, right down to the hand-knitted doilies. "So, Miss Jones." "Mrs." she snapped. "Mrs. Jones. I was married for 52 years to our Arthur, God rest his soul." "I'm sorry," said Nigel, completely perplexed. "It's Mrs. Jones, thank you very much," she replied. "It was a drink that did him in." "Arthur?" "Hit by a Guinness truck coming home from the pub one night. He didn't drink Guinness, mind you. Reminded him of drinking motor oil, he always said." Mrs. Jones stared at Nigel, as if waiting for a reply. With the sudden change in recent world events, Nigel decided that this wasn't a big issue, and he might as well just ignore it. Plus, the old woman was still nursing a shotgun. She looked very much to Nigel like an unhinged English version of Granny Clampett. A slightly confused and uncomfortable silence ensued. To be continued. If you'd like to sign up and join the Read Around the World experiment, just head to www.planetkibby.com. You can find the address in the video description. Thanks. Bye.